Hey, what is up, everybody? So we are finally here. Week 1 of the NFL season. Packers face off against the Eagles in 3 days, Friday night in Brazil. I'm very excited. We've gone all offseason, talking draft, talking offseason additions, Jeff Hafley coming in, new defensive coordinator. So many changes around all of the NFL. And it's fun to finally see, what happens, what people are right about, what people are wrong about in week 1. The Chiefs or Ravens start off on Thursday. It's going to be a fun weekend of NFL football. College has been going on the past couple weekends. I'm not too into college. I'm definitely much more into the NFL and things like that. But it's very fun to be back in the mix of the NFL season. And so today in this video, I want to do a preview and give my prediction at the end, my score prediction on this Packers versus Eagles matchup. And I think that this is a really fun matchup for the first game of the season, because you do have two really, really good quarterbacks in Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, of course, has some more experience in the NFL. Jordan Love now with 1 year starting under his belt. And there are a lot of different changes that have taken place on these teams. 3 of the 4 play callers are new. The Eagles having a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, a new defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, and the Packers moving on to Jeff Hafley as their DC after Joe Barry no longer has the job after 3 years in Green Bay. So there's a lot of different things here that you sort of have just to predict based off of a little bit of what they looked like last year, a little bit of what their new style could bring coming in to these new teams. And first off, I want to start off with the Packers offense facing off against the Eagles defense. Now, to start last year, the big question was, is Jordan Love the guy? He proved it. He is a very, very, very good quarterback. And he got paid as one, getting $55 million per year, tying Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence as the highest paid quarterbacks on a per year basis in the NFL, because Jordan Love, he proved to the organization that he is the guy. And so when we look at this Packers offense, they started off a little slow last year, picked things up, went on a tear. Jordan Love, final 8-9 games, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. And if we look at this Eagles defense, it was definitely their weakness. And that's putting it nicely. They were 30th in points allowed, 20th in rush yards per play allowed, 26th in EPA per pass allowed, which is expected points added, 26th out of 32 teams. And there's no telling that the Eagles knew one of their biggest weaknesses going into this year was their secondary, because you look at the moves they make, they're clearly trying to bolster that group that really held them back last year. They drafted 2 corners in Quinion Mitchell in round 1, Cooper DeJean in round 2. They also brought in safety CJ Gardner-Johnson. And when it comes to rookie players, even first rounders, sometimes it takes them a little time before they reach their peak and really start playing at a top tier level. And so I am questioning, how is Mitchell going to look in his first game in the NFL? Is he going to be ready, or is that going to be an area where the Packers can take advantage with a young rookie out there? It's a good question. A few other stats about the Eagles: pass D last year, 27th in EPA per dropback last year, 28th in PFF cover grade. And so I would expect that as the year goes by, you'd have to assume that this group is better than last year just because of the talent they have added here. I'm just wondering, with a new defensive coordinator, with a new scheme, with a lot of new young players, how long will it take for them to really gel together and play as a unit? And I think that week 1, we could see some miscommunication, some problems just because of the youth here. And I think this Packers offense and Jordan Love really have an opportunity to take advantage, because this is the one unit, looking at the offense and defense, that is coming back in their second year with Jordan Love as a starter. Matt LaFleur, of course, has been calling plays here in Green Bay for a long time, since he came in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. But now with Jordan Love in his second year starting, all these young players, young receivers, tight ends, having that year under their belt, I do think that we're going to see a unit that really builds off how they ended last year. Now, when it comes to week 1s in the NFL, I feel like time and time again, there are just some outliers when you compare it to the rest of the season, just because when a team comes back and they're playing their first game, for anyone, I think that there's some rust there. And so I think we may see some things that maybe a problem week 1 just because guys are getting back out there. The Packers barely played their starters. Jordan Love played in, 3 snaps, threw a touchdown pass to Dontavian Wicks. And so if the Packers were to come out here and look a little sloppy on offense, you don't want to see that as a Packers fan. But at the same time, it's understandable when you're coming into week 1. And so, you can have a lot of takeaways after week 1. But I feel like I'm going to be slow. Whatever the outcome is, it's 1 week of the NFL, and things change drastically week to week, especially early in the year. But anyways, I am very confident in what this Packers offense can do. And if we look at the Packers offensive line, same unit outside of Jordan Morgan, first rounder, likely starting at right guard. Matt LaFleur has been a little bit secretive in his press conference, how the snaps are going to look between Jordan Morgan and Sean Ryan. LaFleur likes to keep some of these things hidden, which makes sense. You don't want to give the competition more information than you have to give them so that they can come in, maybe be a little bit surprised. But the Packers had one of the best pass blocking offensive lines last year. And I don't think there's any reason that is going to change this season. They were the 3rd best offensive line in pressure percentage allowed. You compare that to the Eagles defense last year, who were 20th in pressure rate last season. They made one big change, losing Hassan Reddick, but then signed Bryce Huff to a 3-year, $51 million contract. So the Eagles do, I'd say, have a pretty stout defensive line, but they were close to bottom 3rd in the league when it came to pressure rate last year. And considering the Packers pretty much have the same unit from last year, Rasheed Walker, left tackle, Elton Jenkins, left guard, Josh Myers, center, the one change being Morgan at right guard if he does start, which I would assume. I hope that's the plan with him being a first-round talent. And then Zach Tom at right tackle, who has been one of the best tackles in the NFL with the Packers, finding some value there, getting him in the 4th round a few years back. And so I think the Packers' offensive line is going to be able to protect Jordan Love once again. The Packers are always they put a lot of emphasis on, drafting a ton of offensive linemen, constantly developing guys in the background, guys who can come in and, fill in. And I think we see that time and time again with Rasheed Walker now having that left tackle job, and the fact that Jordan Morgan, coming in, playing tackle in college, and I really thought there was going to be a competition throughout camp between Jordan Morgan and Rasheed Walker. And I thought there was maybe a good chance that Morgan could win the job just with him being a first-round talent and with Rasheed Walker being a 7th-round talent. And there wasn't even really a competition. Pretty quickly, Jordan Morgan wasn't even taking any left tackle snaps, which shows just how good the Packers believe Rasheed Walker is at left tackle and the progress he's made since really taking over last year when David Bakhtiari went down last year early in the season. So the Packers' offensive line is very, very good. And as I said, I see no reason why that won't be the case once again. Now, one of the biggest changes here on this Packers offense was the release of Aaron Jones. He went and signed with the Vikings. The Packers bring in Josh Jacobs, who last year definitely took a dip down from his outstanding production in 2022 when he led the league in rushing. Was not quite the same in 2023, had a much lower yards per carry. I think lots of that had to do with the offense he was on. The fact that, you had such poor quarterback play over there in Las Vegas, and teams didn't really have to be too worried about, the quarterbacks there, where now he comes into a situation where defenses, Jordan Love is one of the best QBs in the NFL. He can beat you in any area of the field. He's great out of the pocket. He, plays in rhythm, makes mostly good decisions, not always. We saw that to end that 49ers playoff game, didn't make the best decision, threw a ball across his body over the middle, and it got intercepted. But most of the time, Jordan Love makes the right decisions. And so I think that Josh Jacobs in this offense is going to be a lot closer to his 2022 self. And I don't expect him to have a all-time rushing year, for him to lead the NFL in rushing, especially considering Matt LaFleur likes to really split up the carries between his backfield, which I think when you have a competitive team, a competitive roster, when you expect to make it to the playoffs, it's much smarter to not, if you don't have to, it's much smarter to limit the carries with your starter, maybe give him 60% of carries, 55%, whatever it may be. And if you have some other running backs who can come in and be that second number 2 back, then you save your guy for the time that matters most when it comes to the playoffs. And so I don't think Josh Jacobs will get quite as many carries here this year, but I still think he's a very, very good player. We look at the Packers last year. They were 12th in EPA per rush last season. And as I said, the Eagles last year were 20th in rush yards per play allowed. And so I do think the Packers are going to be able to run the ball against this Eagles team. And you look at Devin White, who signed with the Eagles this year at linebacker. He has been really, really bad consistently against the run. Last year was 80th out of 82 linebackers in PFF's rush grade last year. So not really great there at that second level. And so I think all in all, the Packers are going to have a good day on offense. I think that it's going to be tough for even the best defenses to stop the Packers offense this year just because of the talent they have at receiver, at tight end, at running back. The fact that it is Jordan Love's second season is going to be, I just think that they're going to take another step forward in Jordan Love's second year starting. So that's sort of the breakdown on the offensive line, or the offense versus the defense there. And now if we move to the other side of the ball, the Eagles brought in Kellen Moore to be the offensive coordinator. And last year, the Eagles down the stretch just declined rapidly. They lose in the first round of the playoffs. Jalen Hurts took a big step back from his 2022 season. In 2022, he had 22 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, a 101.5 passer rating, and then last year, 23 touchdowns to 15 interceptions and 89.1 passer rating. And I think a lot of that had to do with Shane Steichen, the guy who was calling plays for the Eagles before 2023. Him leaving, things really took a dip downward, and the Eagles knew they needed to make a change. They bring in Kellen Moore, who I think is a really solid offensive coordinator, found a ton of success during his time with the Cowboys. During that stretch with the Cowboys, 2019 to 2022, they were second in the NFL in total offense, second in scoring offense and touchdowns, third in first downs per game, fourth in passing offense and third down conversion rate, and seventh in rushing offense. Of course, Dallas has and had a ton of weapons over there, but I do think this is an Eagles offense that has a very similar type offensive unit as that Cowboys team did over the years and still sort of has at this time. I think that Jalen Hurts is a solid quarterback. And then you have, I'd say, some of the best receiving options in the NFL in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So I think we're going to see Jalen Hurts get a little bit closer to his 2022 self because of Kellen Moore coming here to Philadelphia. And it's going to be really fun to see, how Jeff Hafley comes in and sort of his plan and what he wants to do against this Eagles offense that has a ton of weapons. They, of course, also brought in Saquon Barkley. And for many years in Green Bay with Joe Barry, it was just a really, passive scheme, passive approach. The Packers defense has consistently been really, really bad against rushing offenses. And I am curious to see, will Jeff Hafley's scheme and what he brings here, will that change the way the Packers are able to defend the run? That's one of my big questions coming into this year. And it's going to be a tough task in week 1 here against a very solid Eagles offense. And when we look at the Eagles offensive line, one of the biggest changes is the fact that they, of course, move on from Jason Kelce, or Jason Kelce decides to retire, hang it up. And so it's not quite the same unit as last year. You have Cam Jurgens moving from right guard to center, and the Eagles also brought in former first-round pick Mekhi Becton, who's going to start at right guard. They brought him in at a $5.5 million deal. And so I still think this is a very, very good Eagles offensive line with Mailata at left tackle and Lane Johnson at right tackle. But we don't really know what Jurgens will look like at center and Becton at right guard. Becton didn't do great with his time in New York, playing tackle. How will we look at guard? There's some questions there. And so I think overall it's still a very, very good offensive line. But there may be some opportunity for the Packers defense to take advantage there on the interior. And if you look at the Packers and their pass rushing unit, last year they had the 6th highest pressure rate in the NFL. They were 16th in sacks overall. But I think that, you look at last year to this year, this Packers defensive line, pretty much the same group. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, a very, very good defensive line. that sounds pretty excited about the change here that Jeff Hafley has made. Less read and react, more attacking style type defense, defensive line. And it sounds like we should see a lot more, tackles for loss, a lot more disruption in the backfield, where instead of having to, basically keep an eye on two gaps, just going through one gap and just really getting into the backfield a lot faster. I'm curious to see, how that affects the Packers, their pass rush, the run defense, and it's a good test, as I said, in the first week of the NFL season here for this Packers defense. Now, there are some questions for this Packers defense as well that I'm not too sure about yet. Well, we'll see what happens once the season starts. But Eric Stokes is going to be starting outside on the opposite side of Jair, and we just haven't really seen him play much since, the past couple of years, dealt with a lot of injuries. His rookie year looked pretty good. Is he going to look more like he did his rookie year? Is he going to struggle? There's some questions there. Keyshawn Nixon, he's an okay slot corner. I wouldn't say he's a top-tier slot corner. So I think the Packers could have their hands full with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But the Packers, of course, did bring in Xavier McKinney. And so I'm just really curious to see how this whole defense operates together and really what Jeff Hafley's plan is going to be coming in here. Because last year, the Packers, all in all, were a pretty average defense, 23rd in EPA per pass allowed, and they were also 23rd in EPA per rush allowed. And so there's no question why Matt LaFleur decided to bring in Jeff Hafley to try to turn this defense around. And one area where I really think that the Packers can take advantage, and it sounds like from Jeff Hafley's history during his time in college, he really likes to blitz. And that's one area where Jalen Hurts has struggled over the past couple seasons, where it has been against the blitz. And I want to share with you Jalen Hurts, some of his stats last year when you compare him when he was blitzed and when he was not blitzed. So last year, when he was not blitzed, he had 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That was 349 attempts. He had a 96.6 passer rating when not blitzed, which is pretty solid. Now, when he was blitzed, he had a 75.3 passer rating. So nearly 20 points less when he was blitzed. And so I would assume that Jeff Hafley is going to be dialing up some blitzes here against Jalen Hurts, where, that's an area where he struggles. And Jeff Hafley, it sounds like from his interviews and things like that this offseason, that's sort of what he likes to do. Bring in different guys from different sides, blitzing some cornerbacks, blitzing linebackers, really disguising coverages and different guys blitzing. And considering Jalen Hurts struggles in that area, I would really expect to see Hafley dial a lot of things up come Friday night. And just looking at those statistics, I was curious, how does Jordan Love do against the blitz compared to that? Jordan Love had a 95.8 passer rating when there was no blitz last year. He actually was better when he was blitzed. He had a 96.5 passer rating. And you look at his touchdown interception ratio when blitzed, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception. When he wasn't blitzed, he had 22 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So it's very risky to blitz Jordan Love. On the other hand, you're probably much better off, bringing some extra guys against Jalen Hurts, because that was an area where he really did struggle last year. And so that's one big thing I'm going to watch. I would expect Jeff Hafley to bring a lot of blitzes here come Friday night. And so all in all, I think it's going to be a very, very good game, a pretty close game. I'm still going to go with the Packers winning this game. I think they have a better offense, and I think that they're just going to be too much to handle for this Eagles defense. And so I'm going to go Packers win this game 27-20. I think that the Packers defense may force a turnover or two with this new style defense where you got Xavier McKinney on the back end at safety. I'm really excited to see just really what he adds to this defense this year. And so I'm going Packers. Start off 1-0. I think they're the better team overall, and I think they'll win by a touchdown on Friday in Brazil. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe. You can turn on the notifications so you don't miss any content. You can also follow me on Twitter at LukeBeller3. And please, if you have thoughts and you want to share your score prediction as well, feel free to drop it in the comment section down below. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.